Atlanta's hottest nightclub became ground zero for some serious drama last night when Kirk Frost and young Jock squared up against Lil Scrappy in what started as subtle tension, but nearly exploded into something much bigger. Picture this. The club was absolutely packed, bass so heavy you could feel it in your chest, strobe lights cutting through clouds of perfume and cologne, drinks flowing freely, and Atlanta's finest dressed to kill. It was exactly the kind of night that makes Atlanta's club scene legendary. Kirk and Jock arrived looking sharp as always, designer fits, ice on their wrists, and that confidence that comes with being who they are in the ATL scene. But anyone paying close attention could tell something was off. Kirk's smile seemed forced, and Jock's laugh had a weird edge to it. They were seated in VIP, surrounded by their usual entourage, but their attention kept drifting across the room. In another VIP section, Lil Scrappy was doing what he does best, lighting up the room with that infectious energy that's made him a fan favorite. While Kirk and Jock seemed tense, Scrappy was in his element, laughing loudly, moving to the beat, and holding court with his crew. Every few minutes, someone would stop by his table to show love, and Scrappy welcomed them all with that signature charisma. What most partygoers didn't notice was the increasingly frequent glances Kirk and Jock were throwing Scrappy's way. They'd lean in, whisper something, then stare across the club with narrowed eyes. Even the waitress delivering their bottles picked up on the weird vibe, dropping off their order quickly before bouncing. Meanwhile, Scrappy remained oblivious, or at least appeared to be. He moved from his table to the dance floor, clinking glasses with fans and friends alike. If he knew Kirk and Jock were watching his every move, he wasn't showing it. "You see what I'm saying?" Jock finally said to Kirk, loud enough to be heard over the music, but quiet enough to keep it between them. Kirk nodded slowly, eyes still locked on Scrappy. "Yeah, I see it. There's history here that goes deeper than most people know." These three have moved in the same circles for years, crossing paths at countless events. On the surface, things have always seemed cool between them, but those in the know understand there's been tension simmering below the surface. Scrappy's rising star status and his reputation for speaking his mind have made him both beloved by fans and side-eyed by others in the game. For Kirk and Jock, Scrappy represents something they find threatening. Maybe his popularity, maybe his unapologetic attitude. The DJ dropped a new track, and the crowd went wild. In that moment, Kirk and Jock stood up and began weaving through the packed dance floor, cutting a direct path towards Scrappy. People noticed immediately, creating a small bubble of space around the unfolding drama. Scrappy was vibing with some fans when he finally spotted Kirk and Jock approaching. By then, it was too late to avoid them. The music seemed to fade into the background as Kirk stopped just feet away, hands in his pockets, while Jock stepped slightly closer. "What's going on, fellas?" Scrappy asked, casual but clearly on guard. Behind him, his crew tensed up, a couple of them standing to get a better view of the situation. Kirk took his time answering, looking Scrappy up and down before finally speaking. "You've been running your mouth, stirring up drama. You know what I'm talking about." Scrappy's grip tightened on his glass. "I don't know what you mean," he replied, but the usual confidence in his voice was shaky. He glanced back at his crew, who were now on full alert, before turning back to Kirk and Jock. "If you got something to say, say it." Jock stepped forward, shrinking the space between them. Though his body language seemed relaxed, the tension in his eyes was unmistakable. "We've got plenty to say," he snapped, "and if you're smart, you'll listen." Scrappy didn't back down. "Oh yeah? Like what?" he challenged, his free hand balling into a fist, while he took a small step forward, now nearly toe-to-toe with Jock. The crowd around them shifted nervously, some backing away while others pressed closer, drawn to the drama like moths to flame. The club was still packed, music still pumping, but in this corner the atmosphere had completely transformed. Everyone within earshot held their breath, eyes darting between the three men as the confrontation escalated. Scrappy's crew was visibly anxious now, some standing, others huddled near their booth, exchanging worried glances as they tried to read how serious this might get. "You know what this is about," Jock said, pointing directly at Scrappy. "You've been talking out of line, spreading lies. You think you can just run your mouth and not face consequences?" Scrappy raised his chin defiantly. "I've got something to say. I'll say it. But don't come at me with these weak accusations unless you've got something solid." Kirk stepped forward, his expression ice cold. "We've got more than just words, Scrappy. We've got receipts." He pulled out his phone, unlocking it with a quick swipe before holding the screen up. Whatever was displayed made Scrappy's jaw tighten noticeably. So what now? You're going to show me some out-of-context messages? That's your proof? Man, miss me with that nonsense, Scrappy said dismissively, but his voice wavered slightly, a small crack in his confident facade. Jock moved closer, shoulder to shoulder with Kirk. This isn't out of context. You've been playing both sides, saying one thing to us and another to everybody else. It's time to own up before this gets worse. Frustration visibly boiled over as Scrappy planted his feet firmly, squaring his shoulders. You think you can come in here and press me? Who do you think you are? He spat. Without warning, Kirk breached Scrappy's personal space, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper that somehow cut through the pounding music. Keep talking and you'll see what happens next. Scrappy didn't flinch. You don't scare me, he said steadily, despite his racing pulse. You never did. For a split second, it seemed like the situation would explode. Jock's fists clenched, Kirk's eyes narrowed dangerously, and Scrappy's crew edged closer, ready to jump in. The crowd fell into a tense silence, everyone bracing for the seemingly inevitable. Just as the tension peaked, one of the club's security guards pushed between them. All right, that's enough, he said firmly, placing a hand on Kirk's shoulder and pushing him back. Take it outside or take a seat. Kirk maintained his hard stare at Scrappy but didn't resist. Jock relaxed slightly, though remained defensive. Scrappy exhaled slowly as the immediate threat subsided. The security guard motioned for Kirk and Jock to return to their booth. I don't care who you are, this isn't the place for that. After a tense moment, Kirk nodded, slipping his phone back into his pocket. We'll settle this another time, he said quietly, before he and Jock turned and walked back toward their VIP section. Scrappy stood his ground momentarily, his breathing still heavy as his crew gathered around him. You good, man? One friend asked worriedly. I'm good, Scrappy replied, though tension lingered in his voice. He took a slow sip of his drink and turned toward his booth. They're all talk. Always have been. But as he sat down, he couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation was just the beginning. The tension lingered throughout the night. Kirk and Jock sat quietly in their booth, no longer drinking or socializing, their eyes occasionally drifting toward Scrappy's side. They weren't just two guys looking for a good time anymore. They were men waiting, watching, planning their next move. Meanwhile, Scrappy tried to shake off the confrontation, but those close to him could tell he was unsettled. Not afraid, but aware that the situation was far from resolved. Word spread quickly through the club. What started as a private standoff became public knowledge, with witnesses embellishing details for dramatic effect. One woman claimed Kirk and Jock were seconds from throwing punches, while a man at the bar boasted that Scrappy had stood his ground like a champion. A shaky video, captured from across the room, began circulating on social media. It didn't show much, just Kirk and Jock confronting Scrappy, but it was enough. Within minutes, hashtags started trending. Kirk v. Scrappy, Jock got receipts, and Club Dramatal. When Kirk saw the hashtags and comments flooding in, his frustration grew. They're talking like we're the bad guys, he muttered to Jock, like we're the ones who started this. Jock shook his head. It's just noise. But maybe it's time we set the record straight. Kirk nodded grimly. Yeah, we need to handle this. Across the room, Scrappy's crew showed him the same social media firestorm. They're saying you're a legend, man, one friend said, trying to lighten the mood. They're calling you the king of the club. Scrappy forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, sure, but we both know they're not done with this, he said, gesturing toward Kirk and Jock. They're sitting over there plotting. You think this is the end? Nah, they're just getting started. As the night wound down, Kirk and Jock finally stood to leave. They hadn't spoken much since the confrontation. They didn't need to. The tension was thick enough that words weren't necessary. With a simple nod toward the exit, Kirk led the way and Jock followed. Scrappy watched them leave, his jaw tight. They think they're just going to walk out of here and come at me another day, he muttered. Outside, even the cool night air couldn't dissipate the charged atmosphere. Kirk and Jock walked silently past the lingering crowd, got into their car, and drove off, the glow of their phones illuminating their faces as they scrolled through the online reactions. You know what we need to do? Kirk finally said after a long silence. Jock looked at him knowingly and nodded. They didn't need to say more. The confrontation in the club had ended, but the real fight was just beginning.